company, plant. And let's see, what else is to say about it? After leaving the old Humboldt Park School 65 years ago, he attended Bayview High, took up printing at MATC, at that time called Continuing School. He began his formal vocational life with the Western Iron Store as an errand boy in 1917 on the site now occupied by Marshall Field parking lot. In 1918, he joined Federal Rubber in their main office in Cudahy and was extremely active in the employee activities program. Herb worked in Basiris Erie's machine shop from 1923 to 25, then joined Milwaukee Solvay Coke for 42 years. As the craft union became powerful, he joined Local 152 of the International Chemical Workers Union, again rewriting bylaws and serving as a delegate to state conventions. And he will tell you now a little more about the life at Milwaukee Solvay Coke and other things. Okay, Herb?
Hi. I'll refer to a few notes as I go along if you don't mind. But to begin with, about 6 or 8 months ago, I decided that the information that I had accumulated over the years about the Milwaukee Solvay Coal Company, I didn't want to see it go to waste. So I tried to contact people that were members here of the Bayview Historical Society. And after, I don't know how many months, I finally ran into somebody. I contacted Paul Kolbeck, and he, of course, gave me John's name, and we discussed about the plant. I gave him all the information that I had, consisted of, roughly maybe 150, 200 pounds of materials. Mostly all printed books, going back to roughly about 1908. One of the first questions that was asked of me was, how does the coke plant tie in with the history of Bayview? Well, the answer is real simple. The economic effect of the plant, both on work and the take-home pay and the steady employment, took a large number of Bayviewites that worked at the plant. Over 75% of the supervisory positions were held by Bayviewites. Some that came to my memory, if you don't mind, I'll put my specs on. Here's roughly a listing of some of those that I can remember. George Mackey, he was vice president and general manager. He resided in the corner of Mabott and New York Northwestern Avenue, where at the intersection of Meredith. Al Lord was oven superintendent and general foreman, lived on Mabott Avenue. Joe Coleman, chief engineer, lived on South Ellen. Henry Kittner, master mechanic. I knew he lived in Bayview. I didn't know just where he did. Art Veltz, gas producer supervisor, lived on the corner of Superior and Knock. Emil Tanger, head of the coke handling department of the Solvay plant. George Tanger, head of the coal handling and the dock. Tom Kimber, an engineer, lived on Superior Street. Dave Lane, a supervisor, lived on South Shore Drive. Tom Harrington, coke handling supervisor at Trowbridge Street. Irv Christensen, a shift foreman, South Delaware Avenue. Art Fritz, shift foreman, Falling Heath Place. Dick Ohm, shift foreman, East Burdick. Elmer Redland, another shift foreman, South Indiana. Myself, oven superintendent and general foreman on Iron Street. Fred Sanderson, machine shop foreman on Logan Avenue. Harold Gerlach, chief engineer. Charlie Hinz, engineer, and Art Brins, purchasing agent. So there's just some of them that were tied together with the plant, all in supervisory positions. So you can see there is a tie-in with Bayview. To begin with, the coal plant was founded in 1904 by the Newport Company, a man by the name of Arnold Schlesinger. It was called at that time the Milwaukee Coke and Gas Company. Newport Company operated it. They also owned the Newport Chemical in Carrollville, and Mayville's foundry in iron, Mayville, Wisconsin. It became a subsidiary of the Pickens Mather Company in 1960. Pickens Mather was one of the largest operators of coke plants and sales agents in the iron and steel industry throughout the world. They owned and operated at least 7 coke plants throughout the area. The Milwaukee Solid Coke Company was known in its day as a merchant coke plant. A merchant plant is a coke plant that was independently owned, not owned or controlled by any steel company. The name was changed to Milwaukee Solid Coke Company by PM. The primary purpose of the coke plant was, of course, a manufacture of gas, which was purchased by the Milwaukee Gas Light Company for illuminating purposes throughout the city of Milwaukee. The byproducts of coal were as follows. These figures are rough figures. Out of every ton of coal that was charged in an oven, we recovered 18,000 cubic feet of gas. We covered 75% came as coke solids, and 5% as coke breeze. 9 gallons of tar, 8 pounds of ammonia, and about 8 gallons of light oils, which were as follows: benzoyl, naphtha, toluol, toluene, and xylene. Toluol was one of the ingredients of TNT. The coal that we used came from the coal mines in West Virginia. There were 2 types of coal, both a high volatile and a low volatile coal. Volatility means the amount of volatile matter in a coal represented by that part of the coal known as hydrocarbons or vegetable compounds associated with hydrogen, which is driven off by heat in a gaseous form. Excuse me. Yeah, thanks. The coke plant consisted of 200 ovens. The coke ovens were chambers heated by gas, 33 feet long, 17 inches wide, 10 inches high. The capacity was 10 ton of coal. They were heated to a temperature of 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. The coking time, coal that baked in the ovens, was approximately 32 hours. Time and temperature was based on the quality of the coke that they wanted to get. And they were very, very strict, both as far as temperature was controlled very, very strictly and timed the same way. We were given a leeway of, say, we were going to bake the coal for 32 hours. You could push it 10 minutes ahead of time or 10 minutes late. But that was the only leeway you got unless you had a breakdown. Then you had to adjust as far as the heat and the timing was concerned. The 18,000 cubic feet of gas that was driven off by the coking process came off the ovens at approximately 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and we gave it a preliminary cooling by water to drop the temperature down. The gas then was entered into condensing apparatus, cooling towers. We cooled the gas down to 45 degrees. That cooling of that dropped off all the tar and the ammonia that was suspended in the gas. Then it went through another cooling tower, dropped the temperature down to 25 degrees, and that washed practically all of the rest of the tar that was in there. It was then pulled in through compressors, compressed, and by compressing the gas, that raised the temperature again back to 50 degrees. We then pushed that gas through coolers down to 35 for further washing and getting every bit of the tar and the ammonia that was left in that gas. There's then pushed through a system of electrical tar precipitators. The electricity came in at 440 volts AC, and we converted it to 100,000 volts direct current. And by the gas traveling through this electrical atmosphere, that drove all of the particles of tar that was left in the gas out of there. In fact, we recovered, after the precipitators, it went through the precipitators, the gas was 99% free of any tar. The low amperage, of course, was what really helped us push this gas out. And the gas was then pushed through another set of coolers that where they washed the gas with an oil solution. That oil picked up all of the benzols, toluols, and naphtha that was suspended. We'd run that oil into stills, and we'd get our final byproducts out of the deal. The plant in itself kept operating real steady until the natural gas question was raised about introducing natural gas into the state of Wisconsin. The employees down there formed a committee. We formed an organization to fight the introduction of natural gas here in the state of Wisconsin. We were successful for about 10 years. Our main reason for fighting it was we knew that if natural gas came in here, that the coal plant was going to lose it as a supplier to the gas company, and it was going to mean a reduction in jobs. But it finally turned out that way. And after natural gas finally came in after a 10-year fight, we were able to sign a contract with the city of Milwaukee that they took all of our surplus gas and used it down at Jones Island at the sewage disposal plant to recover your mill organite and that. We held on to that particular deal for 10 years. The city of Milwaukee subsidized the coal plant by paying X number of dollars per month so that we could keep our producer plant on a standby basis. Of course, after the 10 years went out, they lost the contract, and then the coal plant became wholly self-sufficient. What gas we made, we used for underfiring our own ovens, making steam in the boiler house, making our own power throughout the power plant, and selling the coke. Of course, that went to the foundry industry, and that gradually slowed down a lot until roughly in early part of the 1980s, business started to drop way, way down. Foundry business got slack. Coal plant business dropped pretty much into the hole as far as that goes. As far as operating employment at the plant years ago, when I first started in 1925, we had almost 500 employees. It dropped down to roughly 380 employees around in the middle 20s and lower 30s, and picked up a little bit after the Depression when the coal plant was put on a 40-hour basis. Up until when I started 25, up until the early 30s, we worked a 7-day a week, 1 day off every 6 weeks. And the wages, of course, at the coal plant were a little bit above the normal, and by working a 7-day a week, of course, anybody working on a coal plant, they were in clover. And In fact, he thought, oh, I work at the Coke, and oh boy, you're in the bucks. I'm sure we were getting where when I worked at Bucyrus Erie in the machine shop, I was getting 38 cents an hour. I started at the plant for 60 cents an hour. Well, it's a hell of a big raise from 38 to 60. And, of course, working 7 days a week. And we had it pretty good. After we organized, of course, we went on to a 40-hour basis. And although there weren't any wages cut, of course, the take-home pay was cut down quite a bit. But through negotiations and all that afterward, why, it kind of worked out pretty good. But I'm going to make this thing real short. I don't want it to become real boring. I did bring some pictures in that along. As far as working in the coke and gas industry, I don't know, I think there's one or two fellows that worked here at the plant are here tonight. At least I saw some of them. They know it was a messy place to work, a lot of coal dust, a lot of smoke, a lot of gas. Of course, a healthy place to work is no self-respecting disease germs live in your body with all what you had to put up with. But we didn't mind it. And I got mixed up here in one of the days, but it's all right. One of the reasons the coke plant started to shut down was a declining market in foundry coke due to the slowdown in the foundry business. The air pollution problem didn't do us very much good either. We were real heavy polluters of the air, and we were closely monitored by the city of Milwaukee County. So if they see a little bit of too much gas, smoke rising from the plant, we get a telephone call, hey, your stacks are emitting such and such a percentage of heavy materials. Well, then we'd have to make adjustments in a hurry, or the company would get fined and all that. But after a while, when the question of air pollution became quite a problem, and so many environmentalists started, oh boy, this is a little too dirty, that's a little too dirty, and they were on our tail all the time. The company spent in about the last 3 or 4 years, almost $3 million in trying to abate some of the problems. We licked some of them, but not too many of them. But results were in 1983 why they decided to go out of business, and that was it. But I thought at the time when I first started on there, the coal plant was never going to shut down, because you never thought that the foundry business would go haywire, and but it did. So, if you don't mind, I'll pass it. Now here, of course, these Jack picked up. These, of course, this mostly heavy compressed coal. These are pieces of coke that we use, but in the foundry business, the coke as it came off the oven, it came in chunks about that size. And the bigger the size was, the better the foundry liked it. But today, there isn't hardly anyone that really uses a solid fuel for heating. You don't mind on there's just some pictures there of different parts of the operation. And I don't know about how many of you people have, while the plant was in operation down around foot of Greenfield Avenue, ever realized the size of the machinery and the buildings that had to be used to go through our process. I brought some of our books along just to give it a rough idea. They're pretty much self-explanatory with our coke rigs and all that.
Fuel was used for quite a few years for heating, wasn't it?
Oh yes, in fact, coke was a cleaner fuel to burn than coal in a furnace. You had less ash and a more steady heat out of it. But especially today, I don't think there's anybody hardly uses cook or uncold. No, there's nothing made there anymore. Yeah, pass them on. Let's let them look at them. And
Any questions you have?
this is what your big pieces of coke look like. Most of it, of course, was by your great big contractors. Now, the back part of that picture there's a tree there. You turn that picture.
Oh, yeah.
That's called, out of that tree there, of course, that picture goes back to roughly, in the early 30s. It shows the various byproducts that come out of coal. There's several hundred of them. And if you try to get that tree up to date today, the tree would be twice that size. Some of the bases of that came out of coal, the bases of your finest perfumes actually came originally out of coal.
Are gone.
Hmm?
An industry that's gone.
Yeah. We had a real good, the employees had real good relationships with the plant, both as far as the unions were concerned and the programs we had. We had a lot of sports, bowling, baseball, dartball, all sponsored by the plant. And to see, it was a heck of a nice plant to work for. Yes.
Not really a question, but just some extra information. When I was doing the research on the Humboldt Park book,
Oh, are you Grafanius?
yeah, I'm referring
I knew your dad.
Us, yeah,
Yeah. Elmer?
Elmer, yeah, that was uncle.
Oh, that was your uncle? Yeah. I knew Elmer real well.
And,
In fact, he practically lived over at our house when I was a kid. Slim.
yeah, very. What I was going to mention is that in the period, and I'm not too sure about the dates, but probably around 1920, there was quite a controversy in Humboldt Park about the lack of music that was being presented there during the summer months. And the Bayview Dance Association was really sticking it to the city because the city wasn't providing enough band concerts. So they stepped out and arranged to have 3 other organizations give concerts, and one that I remember was the Coke band, the Solvay Coke Company.
You'll find a picture of the Milwaukee Solvay in that book of mine.
And
Picture of the
so
band.
they gave concerts regularly for several summers in Humboldt Park. This was not in the band shell that we maybe remember, or the chalet, but this was on the other one down there on Oklahoma Avenue. So there's Bayview connections with the Coke.
Yeah, there's, we passed out some maps here, and the city of Milwaukee was covered with wetlands.
Yeah.
And one of the products of the coke plant, and from the Thomas Furnace Company and the Milwaukee Port and so forth, all of their waste, the slag and so forth, and the ash went into all the wetlands, and so most of your houses are built on some of their ash.
So the coke plant itself was actually built on a swamp also. And when we'd have construction projects going on there over the years, every so often you'd dig down 7, 8 feet and run into a lot of the coke that they didn't sell those days and use that for a fill. And when you're talking about Thomas Furnace Company, with the slag that came off of Thomas Furnace, the biggest part of the fill on the go right away to the North Shore lines, on the high lines there, that was all slag from Thomas Furnace and from the coke plant also. So that was all utilized in that particular area too. Anybody else? The temperature up on the coke ovens, the fellows that worked on the ovens, we wore wooden soles underneath our shoes. They were made out of maple, and we'd wear those shoes down a month and a half. In a month or a month and a half, the company made them, and we just lace them onto our regular shoes, and so we worked around up on the top of the coke ovens. On the top of the coke ovens, let's say if it was a 90-degree day on the outside, you can make up your mind the temperature up on those ovens was 150. And we had very little absenteeism, and we used to put extra men on the job in summer months, depending on temperature. And we call them hot weather men. And you put on one extra man for every 6 jobs, and he'd relieve each one of those fellows in sequence. That's what we working. And of course, when Boulder Dam was originally built on the Colorado River, they started to experiment with salt tablets for the heat problem. And we switched over to using salt tablets. We had them at a salt tablet dispenser at every drinking fountain in the plant. They did some good, but some fellows couldn't take it. It's sick to the stomach, of course, but a tremendous amount of the fellows never drank. And working on the ovens, we very seldom drank cold water. You take a container of water and fill it up and put it alongside the lid, and you're close to the ovens, and let it get lukewarm. That's the kind of water they drink. It was better for them. In the summer months, fellows that were working around on the ovens, they'd wear heavy woolen long johns so that your sweat was absorbed by your long johns. Kept the heat off your body. Every so often get some of the newer fellows over to get shots who've been working there, shirt sleeves or something like that. About an hour or two, and they'd look for a jacket, but anything to keep the heat off. But like I say, we managed to live through it all. I lived through 42 years of it, so.
Without any lung problem? Without any lung problem?
No problem.
Ray has a question.
Can you tell us where that equipment came from? Who made the equipment? Was that
Oh, a lot of these great big bridge companies. Now, talking about the equipment, we had a big bridge that circled the coal field. It was a 180-degree angle that traveled on. That was built by, I think, Wisconsin Bridge. That bridge was 800 and some odd feet long. And like I said, it traveled that 180-degree circle. And the various types of coal that came in from the docks, the field was made out actually like in pie, cutting the cuts of pie. This particular area, you had such and such a coal from this particular mine, and so on down the line. And as we were mixing the coal in the coal handling department, pulverizing it and that, you wanted certain mixtures, 50% of this, 46% of that, and you'd go according to the mines. Most of the good coal, the high volatile and low volatile coal, came from the mines in West Virginia. There were coal mines down in Indiana, and of course out west, but those coals all had a high sulfur content. You stayed away from that kind of stuff, because when you fool around with sulfur and coal and gas, then you always have a tremendous amount of residue. A lot of problems. But like I say, most of our big equipment was made by the great big steel outfits, steel erecting companies. Wisconsin Bridge and Iron did a tremendous amount of work at our plant over the years.
But all your internal equipment, the piping and all that stuff was like made?
No, I don't know where it was made. Most of it, like the coke ovens itself, we had 2 different types of ovens. We had the ovens called the Salve ovens. Those ovens were originally invented over in Europe by a man by the name of Semet and another man by the name of Salve. One was a Belgian and the other was a Frenchman. And they designed these coke ovens way back in the 1880s, 1870s. And the nice part of the salve ovens, they were built with vertical flues, no, horizontal flues, I should say, and you could tear an individual oven out and rebuild it completely from floor up. In 1923, they tore out about, roughly 80 salve ovens and replaced them with 100 ovens, Koppers ovens they were called. They were made by the Koppers Company of Pittsburgh. And they were a larger oven, and they were heated with vertical flues. Altogether different type of heating, and the flues in between the walls were interlocking flues. You couldn't rebuild them 100%. The only rebuilding you could do is about the first 3 feet from each end, where most of the wear was. And we rebuild them in that way. But it was a constant job of rebuilding. During the winter months, they always scheduled, particularly in the salve ovens, we would rebuild X number of ovens that particular winter. Tear them down completely, and you'd keep right on pushing the coke in ovens that were alongside of them. You had to raise the walls, of course, and use openings. And the lining in an oven that lasts roughly about 10 years. And it had to be completely realigned. But it was a never-ending job of maintenance. But all of our maintenance, we had our own maintenance crew. We had a real good machine shop and all the electrical department. We did all our own rewinding of the armatures and rebuilding of the big generators and everything else right down at our plant.
I have another question. Were there any other gas producers in Milwaukee?
No. And as far as the producers, the merchant coke plants, there actually were 8 in the United States. Interlake was in Dayton, Ohio. People's Gas was in Chicago. Waukegan Gas at Waukegan. Lead was in St. Louis. Koppers was in St. Paul. Let's see, there was another one in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and another one in Painesville, Ohio. Those were all the merchant plants. These merchant plants shipped coke throughout the United States. A tremendous amount of coke was used in the sugar beet industry. We shipped carload after carload during the sugar beet time to California, used in that process because of the steadiness of the heat. It didn't become a part of the sugar beet, so the sugar, of course, comes from the sugar. But I say that's one of the parts of our markets were actually from one end of the country to the other. There's very few states that didn't get coke in some way, shape, or manner outside of some of the Florida and places like that where they didn't have the foundry industry. Anyone else? Property is still about, in parts of, I'd say about 70% dismantled. The property is patrolled by dogs at night, and of course there's security all around the clock. But let's say it's is that who's got it now? Yeah. I drove down that way, Jill, about not too long ago, and I thought sure there'd be a heck of a lot more of it gone, but yeah. Because I noticed when they dropped the coal bridge, yeah, that they had on TV that time. That was quite an impressive sight. I would have liked to have been down there to see that drop. I remember one time with that bridge. Bridge got out of control, and boy, that thing was really wheeling, coming down toward the northwest end of the track. And when he hit that bumpers, that big bridge swayed like this. It's going, but I don't know yet why that thing ever stayed on its wheels. But that was a tremendous big piece of machinery. And it was in the 40s. I was financial secretary of an organization that scrapped the introduction of it every so often. We get ourselves in a little bit of trouble with the plant, but particularly with the gas company officials. But I did a lot of lobbying on it. And we succeeded in keeping our jobs for 10 years anyway.
Is coke still being made?
I don't know. If there may be a few of those plants in operation yet. I don't know though. I know the plant at Waukegan is gone. The one at Racine is gone. The one in St. Paul is gone. I don't know about Laclede in St. Louis, but most of those are all gone.
Someone makes coke for the briquettes.
Well, they were using not like this stuff here. They pulverize that and then add a fuel oil. Yeah. Yeah, there were some charcoal briquettes, but they were making coke briquettes also.
Out of coke?
No, out of coke. They were making briquettes. The briquettes that were used, that people use nowadays in their grills, those are made out of charcoal. Yeah.
The gas that was made was shipped by pipeline over into the third ward.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, years ago.
Big storage tanks there.
Yeah.
And then out in right near Elm Grove, Western Washington.
Well, with the gas that we made, we shipped it directly to the third ward through two different pipelines. One pipeline ran along Barclay Street and then down under the river, and the other one ran along the Northwestern Railroad tracks and it went under the river roughly where the railroad trestle is crossing the Milwaukee River into the third ward. From that gas holder in the third ward, the gas then was pushed up to 27th and St. Paul. They had 5 gas holders up at St. Paul Avenue. I forget how many million cubic feet of gas each one of those held. I know I had quite a scary experience one year. One of the gas holders had sprung a leak. It parted at the seam up on the top of the holder. Well, it seemed about that long and about this wide. It was a kind of L-shaped crack and lifted part of the top up. Of course, people living up on Clyburn Street complained about the gas smell, and so they investigated and found out what was what. At that time, I was on a safety team at our plant, and they called the plant for help, and I had assembled a crew of fellows, went down there, they got iron workers up from Chicago to repair this particular leak, and we stayed up on top of the gas holder while these men pumping air to these fellows. The gas company found out later they had a crew, but they stuck it down on our neck. If I'd have known what the danger I was going in, I'd have never gone up there. Firemen wouldn't even go up on out of that tank that time. But well, one of the parts of the job, I suppose. Anything else? Yeah. Here's one of the little slogans they had. Milwaukee Solvay, that's the name. When buying Coke, demand the same. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that slogan real well.
How would they repair that big hole?
Huh?
How did they repair the hole?
By drilling with bronze drills and then cutting the plates down on the ground, of course, and welding studs onto them and then lowered it in the hole with wires and pulled it so that the studs came up through the holes that they had drilled with these bronze drills. You use bronze wrenches, anything that wouldn't spark. But like I say, we were up there for 8 hours, the longest 8 hours of my life. So, we had several explosions down at the plant over the years. One in 1923, shortly before I started there. On the light oil department roof, the tank house let go. 3 fellows were killed in the explosion itself, but in that book of photographs, you'll see there's some of the wreckage of that particular building, and that was a mess. But I was actually myself, I was involved in 3 different explosions. I got burnt in one of them. I was underneath the platform when working on a gas leak. When through carelessness on the part of one of the employees, we had a valve shut and had the red tag on which indicated don't touch it. The only person that could touch that valve was the one that put the red tag on it to begin with. Some fellow saw the tag, oh, the gas pressure's down that line. Open the valve. I got it. From here, the only part that I didn't get burnt was where my cap was. No eyebrows. And after they got through with me at St. Luke's Hospital, I looked like a mummy. 2 holes here, 1 hole here, another hole where they could feed me with the tube. But luckily I never got scarred from it. But all
interesting, Herb, that you're getting in the neighborhood of, or workers there in the plant, they're getting in the neighborhood of $1 an hour. And what do they have now as a medical benefit?
well, the plant itself changed hands quite a few times in the last several, I'd say the last several years they were in operation. And most of the time when these holding companies buy companies out, they raid the pension funds, raid the sick benefit funds. We were lucky. When Milwaukee Solvay was, when Pickens Mather finally sold the Milwaukee Solvay, they sold Milwaukee Solvay, our plant, to Moore McCormick Steamship Lines. Moore McCormick's main office was in Connecticut. Moore McCormick later sold out to Moore McCormick Resources, and they assumed the pensions and the sick benefits and everything else that went with it. Then Moore McCormick Resources sold to a concern in Houston, Texas called the Southdown Incorporated. Southdown rewrote and the insurance setup. They combined our pension and health insurance setup with Southwest Portland Cement Company. And the Southwest Portland Cement evidently had a heck of a lot more money in those pension funds and in the benefit funds. And they rewrote our funds, and I don't know what the fellow, like with Gil, I don't know what the fellows that worked down at the plant on the hourly basis. I worked on salary. We had a lot better coverage than the hourly man. My policy that came back after Southtown sold out, I turned it over to Portland Cement. The face value on my particular insurance policy is $1 million. That's for life. It's a fantastic insurance policy. They pick up every dime that Medicare doesn't pick up. Never ask a question. Send in your bills and that, and just that quicker. And of course they show on your voucher slip the balance that's left in your sick benefit fund. Like mine, I looked at it not too long ago. I still had $990,000. So there's a lot to go yet. So it's like I said, it's a fantastic setup. But those were all some of the benefits. That some turned out real good, others not so good. I've been retired for 23 years, and like I say, I've enjoyed every minute of it. Anything else?
How old are you now?
I'm 88.
88.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks an awful lot. I will say this much now. I'd often wondered about the Bayview Historical Society, and one of these days I'm going to try to apply for membership and see where they'll take me. I don't know. It all depends on what you're going to sell me.
Can you manage $5?
Yeah, no problem.
See the man over there.
I'll see you guys later.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Nice to have you here.
Could I have those books back?
Pass those books forward so he can take them along
Yeah,
on the money
because,
later.
they're all valuable.
Thanks a lot, Herbert.
Yeah.
enjoyed your speech.
Here on this particular picture, by the way, I'd say that of that gang that's in here today, there's only about maybe